Welcome, everyone. Here's our NL Central analysis. There's been a lot of stuff going on this year in baseball and the NL Central. Actually, I should say there hasn't been a lot of stuff going on from the NL Central except for a sell-off from the Chicago Cubs. And we thought this would be a good opportunity for us to talk about where we see the NL Central at and who we think the teams are that's going to be competing at the end of the year, and what are some of the team's needs going forward. Rich, why don't you start us off here?
Yeah, for me, the NL Central is going to be an interesting league this year. I think the St. Louis Cardinals with Arenado trade have put themselves in first place, and then I think you're going to have a battle for 2 through 4. I think the most interesting thing has been the Reds all season. You know, one of the things I did was look at the Reds, and when you look at 2019, just going back, when I look at the Reds, I feel like their management and ownership team is bipolar. And the reason I say that is 1 year we're rebuilding. 1 year we're all in. Next year we're out. Who are you? The Reds don't know who they are. When I look at teams like the Brewers, they know who they are. The Dodgers, they know who they are. The Atlanta Braves, they know who they are. When I look at the Reds, we don't know who we are. I mean, in 2019 and 2018, 2019 we made a trade for Trevor Bauer. I think we all knew that we were not going to keep Trevor Bauer after 2020. I thought his price was too high. But then in 2020 we decided, okay, we're all in. So we're going to go get Akiyama, 3 years, $21 million, $7 million. We're going to sign Wade Miley, 2 years, $16 million. We're going to sign Mike Moustakas, 4 years, $64 million. Nicholas Castellanos, 4 years, $64 million. That tells me that my team has a 3 or 4 year window to win. Most of those contracts run out in 2024. So what that's telling me is I'm all in. I'm committing the resources to win. What happens the start of this year? We trade Iglesias, $9 million. We release Archie Bradley, $7 million. We make no attempts to replace Galvis. And who are we? I mean, if I'm a Reds fan, I am not sure what to believe. But last year they were 30 and 29. 31 and 29, which wasn't that bad, but they were 27th in runs, 19th in OPS, and we could say that they completely underperformed offensively. And their pitching was great. Their pitching was really good. They have a chance to be good without Bauer this year. I think they ranked 7th in ERA as a team last year. Right now they have $120 million committed as far as resources, which is less than they had committed in 2020 and 2019. So I don't know, guys. I want to know from both of you being Reds fans, who are the Reds? I mean, why did we make these big deals and then just –
I was hoping you were going to give us the answer because we don't know. Yeah, looking at the Reds, the Iglesias trade didn't surprise me. He had a good year last year, but the year before he kind of struggled in high leverage spots. The Archie Bradley to me was a head scratcher. I mean, you have a guy who's been a pretty dominant bullpen guy, and you traded for him last year. So you pretty much traded for a guy that you got like 3 games out of. I don't remember the number. It makes no sense. But going into this year, their starting rotation is still pretty strong. You still got Gray and Castillo up there. Tyler Mahle, he flies under the radar. I think he's going to have a much better year than people expect. And then you got Wade Miley in there, who he's decent. The inaction at shortstop is kind of surprising too. You're right. They in the last 2 years they've seemed to give themselves a good little 2 to 3 year window, and then this year they've just dropped the ball. So I don't really know. I know they've been in top talks with Jonathan Villar, so we'll see what happens there. But looking at the other teams and looking at the Cubs, who I'm not expecting a lot from the Cubs this year, they've pretty much gutted their rotation. They've lost Quintana, they've lost Darvish, they've lost Lester, and they lost Chatwood. So their starting rotation isn't looking too hot. They did add Zach Davies, and their hitting lineup pretty much stays the same. And then you got the Cardinals, who they lost Colton Wong, but they added Arenado. We talked about this in an earlier podcast. Probably from a fantasy perspective, it doesn't really not a good thing for Arenado people, but for the Cardinals, with having the Rockies eat a quarter of that salary, that's a good move. They got a huge war bump at third base, and then looking at the Pirates, I don't even know if that's worth talking about. We all agree that this might be one of the worst lineups ever in Major League history. It just sucks for the Pirates fans. Who knows what they're doing. And then when you got the Brewers, who they did add Colton Wong, but they've lost a couple key pieces. They lost they did lose Ryan Braun, who's given them really, really good production. They lost Nebo in the bullpen, who wasn't really a big factor. So I'd say their lineup is pretty much is evened out. And when I look at, from my perspective, when we talk about what all these moves have done up to this point, what do these look like as far as divisional rankings? I agree with you, Rich. I think the Cardinals are still the top dog, which I hate to say it. 2 through 4 is going to be a tight race. If I were to predict it right now, I would say Brewers are at 2, the Reds are at 3, the Cubs are at 4, and then the Pirates, we all know they're the cellar dwellers. Aaron, what are your thoughts on the NL Central for this year?
So I do think the Cardinals are the best team in the division. Unfortunately, I don't think they're that much better than the rest of than the Reds, personally. And like I said, it might be.
That's why it's so disappointing the Reds didn't do anything. I think they are really close. My concern is, hey, you got a chance, take it. And the Reds just said, I'm throwing in the towel. I'm not doing anything.
And I think that's what happened with the Reds this offseason. I think they were ready to say, because of the pandemic last year and not having any fans and suffering at gate attendance, that they were ready to just throw in the towel. And then they watched what the Cubs did, and they watched what the Milwaukee didn't do there for the longest time, or St. Louis didn't do there for the longest time. Well, should we really tear this all down because nobody else is doing anything? We could have a good run at the postseason. So I think that's, if I had to guess, I think that's what happened. Once they see nobody else making any moves, they say, well, maybe we should stop at the Archie Bradley release and see what happens from there.
So what do you guys look as of right now? What do you think at the end of this year? What move in the NL Central do you think we're going to be talking about? Do you think we're going to be saying, Arenado put the Cards over the top, or are we going to be talking about how the Cubs just pretty much let their whole rotation go, or are we going to be talking about how the Reds struggled to replace Bauer? What's the key theme, do you think, at this point in time, if you were to guess? At the end of the year, what's the one big thing we're going to be talking about that happened in the NL Central?
I think the Brewers not through as far as picking up free agents. I mean, they only have $70 million committed to payroll right now, and last year they were at $97 million. Year before, $116. So I really think they got a couple of moves left that might change their outlook. As far as I'm looking at the Brewers, they do a really good job with pitching, so I feel like they have an opportunity there that they could leapfrog some folks with the right moves. I mean, they start off with several young pitchers. When you look at Corbin Burns, and then you've got Brandon Woodruff as your 1-2. That's really good. And then as a number 3, I really like the upside of Josh Lindblom. He had really good whip, great strikeout numbers. I think he only had 44 innings, which was kind of a problem. And his ERA was high, but I think that would have leveled out over the course of the season. He didn't go deep into a lot of games, but he looked good. I think you could see where he could take a step forward. I would love to see them add another pitcher or two, and I think they need another hitter for third base. But they're a team that could sign somebody like Justin Turner and then maybe go in for like a Paxton or maybe Odorizzi as far as pitching, and then they take a step up, move up. For me, I think the Cardinals are the number one team. I'm just disappointed in the Reds. When I look at the Cubs, they decided they're going to cut payroll, play some young guys. I still think they have an opportunity. They still could come in on a pitcher, and then we're starting looking at the Cubs a little bit different because they have a good offensive team. And really, the only player they really lost they lost Yu Darvish and they lost Jeremy Jeffers out of the bullpen, which are two big moves. But
they lost
Schwarber.
They did.
The Cubs lost Quintana. They lost Darvish. They lost Lester.
Yeah, Lester wasn't that big a deal when you look at his ERA last year. He wasn't a big player for them last year. Losing Darvish was tough, but they did get Jock Peterson, who I think he can duplicate Schwarber's numbers. And then they have the money. This is a team that dropped their payroll $50 million in the offseason. So they have the money. I really love
Not according to them.
Not according to them, but I really love the Brewers if they make some more moves. And my disappointment is the Reds. I think if they would have picked up a Didi Gregorius or picked up a good shortstop, a good bat, and then maybe added a pitcher, and even with the moves of letting Iglesias and Bradley go because they do have some good young pitching and they know how to develop pitching, this is a team they could have competed for the top, and I'm not sure they're going to do that this year.
Yeah, the Reds not going after Simeon was a real disappointment to me. But I like your take on the Brewers. Their top two starters are solid. Woodruff and Burns. Three guys after that, they're nothing to write home about, but they're not horrible. But looking at their lineup, their top four is pretty solid. Now that they've added Colton Wong, who I'm betting will probably lead off if it's not Lorenzo Cain. But they got Wong, Cain, Yelich, and Hira, who you all know I'm a big Hira fan. That's a solid top four. And then, like you said, there's still a couple third basemen out there. They might make a move, but I think they're going to give Luis Urias a chance because he's a highly touted prospect who just hasn't materialized at the majors. But I think maybe a change of scenery might do him some good. But
he hasn't done it.
If you ask me what the theme is of this, as of right now, it's gonna be the Cubs letting their rotation go. I expect them to, like I said, my projected order of finishes is Cubs, Brewers, Cards, Brewers, Reds, Cubs, and then Pirates. So if you guys were to predict the order of finish as of right now, what's your prediction?
I got the Cardinals, Reds, Brewers, Cubs, and Pirates.
I have the Cardinals, Brewers, Cubs, Reds, Pirates.
My analysis is the Cardinals probably have the best offense now in the league, and their pitching's not bad. I think the Brewers probably have the best pitching from starters to bullpen. They've got Devin Williams in the bullpen that a lot of people forget about. I see him as a dark horse closer for 2021. There's been a lot of talk for a long time about the Brewers trading Josh Hader, just as a player that is kind of a luxury for a small market team like Milwaukee. And if he does, Devin Williams steps right in and he'll become a top 8 closer in the league. His numbers are that good. Like I said, the Brewers off the pitching is probably head and shoulders above everybody else. The Reds is probably the most balanced team in the league between hitting and pitching. I think, they should have gotten a shortstop. I'm not a big Jose Garcia fan either. In my opinion, he's not the answer this year. Maybe he's the answer in 2022 or 2023. But I don't think he's the answer in 2021. Kyle Farmer might be a sleeper there at shortstop. I like his bat. I'm not sure whether he can play shortstop all year, but I guess we'll find out at this point. And yeah, the Cubs, to go back to the Cubs, I think they did okay. We got rid of everybody else, and we'll sign Jock Peterson. Jock Peterson is kind of the poor man's Kyle Schwarber. He can mash righties all day long, and as long as he platooned in L.A., he probably won't platoon that much in Chicago just from the lack of options. But like I say, he has a chance to blossom a little bit here in Chicago. I do like Ian Happ. I do think Chris Bryant is not long for this team. I think he gets traded probably before June. They're definitely rebuilding, and because of that, I don't think they're going to seriously compete for the division. And then the Pirates are the Pirates.
Well, yeah, the Pirates are a AAA team pretending to be a major league team. What players do y'all like from each team that you think can really take a step up this year? Because I'm with you, Aaron. I think Ian Happ is a guy that I'm kind of looking at as a guy that can step up this year for the Cubs. Who's that guy that's going to take the job from Greg Kimbrell when he loses the closer job this year?
For me, there's two guys that I'm really watching this year, and I'm really expecting big things from. So one is O'Neal Cruz, the shortstop for the Pirates. I expect him to come up this year and make a statement. He's going to have the chance because of their lineup. I think this is the year where they start bringing up all their young guys and seeing what they got, to go along with Cabrian Hayes and those other young guys. And then the second one is, I don't want to be a homer here, but Tyler Stevenson from the Reds. He's a guy that, for some reason, he's not on a lot of people's radars, and he's a high caliber player. He's always been a high caliber player, and I expect him to come in and make a statement right away.
Some of the players I like, obviously we already mentioned Ian Happ. I think he could be a top 20 outfielder this year, easy. And that would be Cole Tucker for the Pirates. He's another one of those young guys that you were talking about with the Pirates. The advantage of having a AAA team like playing against Major League, they get the experience, they get the ability to prove themselves. And a lot of players take that opportunity to run with it. I do like Cole Tucker as a deep sleeper, and I look forward to seeing what he could do. And here's a name that hasn't been mentioned a lot this offseason, and that's Nick Sinzell. And we've been talking about Nick Sinzell. To me, his shine is a little dull now after 3 or 4 years of hope and waiting for it to click. But I do think that eventually it will click. Maybe 2021 is the year. Maybe he can put it all together. Maybe he can stay healthy for the entire year. We'll definitely see. And then Dylan Carlson, I'm ecstatic to see what he can do in that full-time role. He came up last year early, or I guess mid-season, couldn't quite put it all together. They sent him back down to the minors. And then about 2 or 3 weeks before the end of the season, they brought him back up, and he just hit. He carried that into the postseason. Now, if he could carry on that, what he was doing there at the end of the season into 2021, he's primed for a really good season. So I can't wait to see what he does this year.
Yeah, I think you both made good picks. I hadn't even thought about O'Neal Cruz. You're totally right. They're going to be bringing up young guys to take spots. And Aaron, I agree with you. Maybe he's this year's Nick Sinzell's this year's Dom Smith. He doesn't have a real role. You're not sure what he's going to play, but he's got the pedigree, and you can see upside where he could hit 20 bombs and 20 steals, and you're getting him pick 300 or pick 250, somewhere around there. So I like both those guys. I was trying to think of – I'm kind of curious to see how Mike Mikolas comes back for the Cards. He was a really good pitcher, and I'm kind of keeping an eye out on him because he's supposed to be ready for spring training, and he's going really, really late in drafts. I think, after pick 300. So a late round stab. I like him. I love the Cardinals bullpen. You were talking about, the bullpens. I mean, if you look at them, they got Andrew Miller, John Gant, Alex Reese, Jordan Hicks, Gio Gallegos. I mean, they have a deep bullpen. I really love the Cardinals bullpen this year.
Yeah, and that's probably the difference that's probably what makes them the division winner this year.
Yeah, and the other guy we didn't really talk about we talked about the Brewers probably, at some point might be making another move at some point. And right now they're one of their top prospects in AAA is Corey Ray, who's been a really highly rated prospect throughout. So I think we could expect to see him make his debut this year as well, depending on if the Brewers make another move or not.
I personally think, obviously, the Reds need a shortstop. I think the Brewers need one more legitimate bat at the very least. That's why I don't have them ranked any higher. They just don't have that other big bat to go along with Yelich. It's Yelich and everybody else. Hira is fine. He's probably a good number 4 hitter, but you really need another power bat in that lineup.
I agree, but you could take Keeson Hira and maybe he takes a step up and he goes out and hits 35 bombs with 15 stolen bases. He plays first base. You can see the Brewers taking a step up because they have a lot of young players, have a really good, strong bullpen. I mean, you've got Josh Hader, you got Devin Williams, you got Brent Suter, you got Freddie Peralta. I mean, I like their bullpen. Their top 2 is great. I would love to see them add a starting pitcher, and they need a third baseman. One thing to think about, they didn't have Lorenzo Cain all year last year. And Lorenzo Cain's been a 300 hitter with a little bit of pop, maybe 10 home runs and 20 stolen bases. I don't see him being great on the stolen base side, but you can see Christian Yelich coming back. You can really see the Brewers with 1 or 2 quick moves, and maybe they make a move. They wait and make a move at the mid-season point. But they're a team that has a lot of youth, and they have a lot of money to spend. I mean, they're a low-market team, but their financial commitment right now is $72 million. When you look at what they spent in the past, they've got $20, $30, $40 million to spend if they want to go out and get a player.
I agree. I think the Brewers could use another starter. They could use another big bat. We talked about it before. Their top 4 is pretty solid, but I'm not going to say at this point any third baseman. I think they're going to give Urias a chance. The Cubs need pitchers. The Reds, I don't think we really know where their rotation stands. I think that all depends on Lorenzen, if he can hold that spot and how well he does it. But we know the Reds need a shortstop. Pirates need everything.
What do you think about C.J. Anton?
That's funny you mentioned that, because I was just about ready to mention about the Reds' potential starters. They have, if you're looking for sleeper pitchers, starters specifically, I would look at the Reds, because T.J. Anton, Michael Lorenzen, Wade Miley, Tyler Miley, and all of them, they've shown flashes of brilliance. And like I said, if I was taking some chances on sleepers, that's those 3, 4, 5 starters I would be looking at as potential starters, because Lorenzen has good stuff. He's showed it in the bullpen. Can he also perform that way as a starter? We'll find out potentially. And so, like I said, if you're looking for those sleeper in the starters, that's one team to look at.
Hey, Justin, I got a question. Jose De Leon, he came from Tampa Bay, but prior to that, he was with the Dodgers. He was a top 100 prospect at one time. The Reds have him, and at least from the reports I've heard, he's hitting 95 again. He had some arm trouble. I mean, what do y'all hear about him? I
mean, if you want a high strikeout guy, that's it. I mean, this is the guy who strikes out people like crazy. I'm not really sure how they're going to utilize him, but
Could be a dark horse for a closer or setup. I don't think they'll risk putting him in the rotation because it's been a little fragile, if you will. So I don't think he'll be a starter candidate, but he could be high leverage reliever.
Now with Sean Doolittle there as another lefty in the bullpen, who is the closer, Sean Doolittle or Amir Garrett, or is it somebody else?
I don't know. They don't. They only have 2 lefties in the bullpen, so I have a hard time believing, even though he's earned it and he wants to close. I have a hard time thinking that they're gonna announce Garrett as a closer. I'm leaning towards that they're gonna go more of a closer by committee this year and just and do it situational. But who knows? They have a lot of guys that deserve. They want to close and deserve to be given a chance of the high leverage situation, including Lucas Sims. I mean, he pitched really, really well last year. I mean, Garrett's a stud. So I think as of right now, it's just kind of one of those wait and see kind of things.
If I was handicapping that field, it'd probably be Lucas Sims first, Amir Garrett second, Sean Doolittle third. I'll take that back. It'll probably be Lucas Sims or Sean Doolittle as closers to start off. It'll be one of those two. Maybe it'll be a closer committee between the two. Amir Garrett is your best left-handed reliever. I know a lot of teams hate using lefties as closers just if they don't have that many lefties in the bullpen, just because you have those situations in the game where you need to strike out those left-handed hitters. That's why you have those power lefties in the bullpen. If you put them in the closer role, you really lose something in the bullpen. So I don't think Amir Garrett will be the closer. He might want to be the closer, but they need him in those high-pressure situations more.
One last question. Do you think Ke'Bryan Hayes for the Pirates takes the next step this year, or do you think he's just an average player?
He's been a highly touted prospect, but I mean, he came in and had a really, really good year last year. I don't think he replicates those numbers. He's a good prospect. One of the few bright spots for the Pirates this year. But I think if people are expecting him to replicate last year's numbers and average out over 500 at bats, I think they're going to be in for disappointment.
I mean, I think he's a good player. I'm not sure if he's not a better baseball player than fantasy player. That's my question, because his power's been double digit, but low double digits. He has some speed. He's a good on base guy and a great defender apparently. But I'm just wondering if that bat is a 25 home run bat. And is that average more of a 270, 280 hitter takes a lot of walks, or is it really a 300 hitter bat? So
I know he's made a lot of leaps and bounds in the minors over the last few years, and I like to say he will take that next step and be an offensive power in the majors. He's really one of the only few players on that team that deserves to be in the majors, unfortunately. I like to think he will continue to improve. Like I said, he's done a lot in the last few years in the minors to improve his game, to improve his hitting, and I don't see why it should change now that he's in the majors.
Would you take Eugenio Suarez over the next 3 years or Ke'Bryan Hayes?
Suarez.
Yeah, I think I would too.
No question.
I would too.
Well, like I say, he has a track record. Like, there is something about a track record. All right, guys, thank you for listening. Fantasy Knuckleballers. Check out our website, fantasyknuckleballers.com. Email us at MVP@fantasyknuckleballers. Check us out on Twitter at FKnuckleballers. I appreciate you watching. Look for us again